Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Tonight, we are going to do a little bit more Blazor and fun. I managed to get a couple coworkers conned into helping me on another project, but we'll get to more of that in a moment. So we'll go through and introduce them. In the very far corner, I have Reese, developer extraordinaire. He told me to say great things about him, or something to that effect. And then next to him, in the black, hiding behind black, here, I'll put a different background behind him. Hiding behind the blue black background, Jared, again, also one of my extraordinary colleagues and coworkers. He has been on here before for people who pay attention. So they are willing to help me out on this little pointer website that we are building. But quick side chat before we get too distracted. Grilled knock on. Love it. So there's a link there for anybody who happens to be potentially local to the Spokane area. The .NET user group, and also sponsored by the company we work for, Intelitech, is putting on a developer conference, deep diving into a lot of the new stuff with .NET, C# 11, Net 7, Maui. I'm trying to remember all of the topics there. I'm sure it was long and interesting. There is also going to be a talk on Coalesce, which is a framework that Intelitech has put together for quickly bootstrapping web applications. So a lot of that boilerplate for going between your front end and your back end, Coalesce just kind of takes care of all of that for you so you can focus on the interesting stuff. So, and then lots of breakout sessions. Yours truly is doing the Maui one, and I don't remember who's all doing other stuff. So I think Kelly's doing this MVVM in Blazor, and hopefully we're going to stomp on his parade a little bit by doing some of that tonight. So, okay, enough with the interjections. Uh, cool.
That's kind of a big deal, isn't it? It's like a at least a half day event, right?
It is a half day event, and I think we're only charging like 20 or 30 bucks for it.
Cool.
And you get to hang out with us, which is just awesome.
It's the
So,
best part.
I mean, well, it depends on who you are, but yes. This is your intrepid PO, by the way. Uh-oh. Okay. So don't say anything bad about Alan. I was about to get to him in a minute, but apparently we shouldn't say bad things about him because he's now watching the stream. Okay, so quick backstory. Alan came to me, or didn't come to me. Alan is our intrepid, let's see, pointingpoker.com, I think is what it is. He is our amazing product owner, scrum master extraordinaire, absolutely amazing to work with. Also can double as an MC in a pinch because he is awesome. And we tend to use this Pointing Poker website. And there's quite a few different sites online that do this same type of thing. So typically in your scrum planning meeting, product owner comes in with story, team discusses it, and then the idea is to figure out, okay, well, how big is this thing? And so people go through different kind of pointing sessions. And this one, we've used quite a bit, but we also run into issues with reliability. It goes down every so often. It is a light theme, not a dark theme. Saying that's a selling point, but it might be a selling point. And so I figured, I was like, this is a fairly simple concept. Let's just build it. If nothing else, it'll be fun. So that was kind of the premise of where we were going. Is we were looking to do something that can solve this problem, and it needs to be simple. Like, to Alan's credit, when I asked him for a list of features, he is aggressive when it comes to trimming things down to MVP. Like, he will strip out anything that isn't absolutely required, which he did. So we got a GitHub repo, and I should also warn you, Alan has apparently decided that he's doubling his dev because he got the first pull request on this repo. So he's not to be trifled with. He will commit and push, and then I put in branch policies to slow him down a little bit. But underneath the issues, we've got a milestone, and on the milestone, if you hit the show more, this is basically the list of MVP features. And I think there might have even been I think like non 14 is, well, attractive, well designed. That one's a little more subjective, but this was the set of MVP features that need to be in for this thing to be usable for at least some of our teams. So if the question is, what are we doing? I then wrote a bunch of issues around these types of things of what I think needs to happen. We may find more. We may need to refine some of these things, but this is effectively what we're trying to build. Does that kind of make sense? A little bit. Stop me. For everyone. Oh, so I warned everyone else, or I should say, I warned Reese and Jared earlier that I only brought one Mountain Dew with me. So we'll see how long I can go tonight. But I brought one Mountain Dew with me. So
Kevin, could we take a few minutes to see how the existing application works? Can we demo it real quick?
sure. Well, so the existing app as I've deployed, or the one that
No,
we're kind of replacing type thing.
the one we're replacing, yeah.
Yeah. So
because I've never used this before.
No, so that is perfect. So you come in here, you put in a name. I've been just repeatedly adding an increment to my name for no reason whatsoever. And then I need to remember actually how to set this up. Okay, Intrepid PO help. Where's the create room button? Oh, start a session. See, readings OP. It's good. Go back. See, Alan, I should warn you, this thing's slightly delayed. You started a retrospective. Oh, well, so that's not what I want. I want a session. Start a session. I come in here. And then
start a session. You mean
pointing
join a session?
It says pointing session. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not the Scrum Master. I just join these things. Join session. Oh, look at that. Okay, here we go.
So 522.
Okay. Yeah. So here, and I'll send you guys the link, and you can drop in. So that's the other thing that is, I guess, somewhat implied. We aren't doing like auth related stuff here, right? So typically through the course of this, like if somebody joins in, you type in whatever name you want. Like you typed in Jared, but for all I know, this is evil hacker twin Jared, and not really you. That's okay.
So is the idea of this app then just super lightweight? We're talking about like an issue and a sprint, and then we all just, instead of saying what our vote is, we could just pop it in here and say Jared votes to 5.
Correct. Yeah. The idea being to hopefully mitigate a little bit of, well, Jared said a 5, so I was gonna say a 13, but maybe I'm gonna say a 5 instead, right? Eliminating a little bit of that peer pressure thing, and then at the end you hit the show votes. You see how they are. There's a story or two written up around kind of how we're gonna show these, like ordering and grouping them, so that it's clear, where things out. Alan usually tends to just either go for like an average, or if there's a widespread, get some discussion until the team kind of starts to converge in on some agreement where maybe one person says, oh no, this is definitely like a 13 and here's why, and yada yada, or what are you guys talking about? That's a text change. It's a 1-pointer. Like, what are you doing?
Sure.
So yeah, or Alan puts in the chat, we don't want devs to defer to the perceived best dev, right? Because I mean, all I would do is defer to Jared all day long, and we can't have that. So
we wouldn't get anything done.
And then clear votes is just effectively reset the board to go back over, and away you go. So there's not a lot of stuff here, and it's fairly simple and straightforward.
I thought it was interesting. They have an API you can click on too, right there.
Yeah, to be able to go through and hit it, and that's the if it wasn't for some of the reliability bits that we've seen, like this site does do pretty, there's a few weird things with it, but other than that, it's pretty close. Like they've got some story descriptions and that kind of thing.
UI is kind of weird, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a coffee button either,
which is definitely a problem. It definitely needs a
Mountain Dew button.
And that's true. I think Alan worded it as abstain, but yes, that's basically what we're talking about. Or some people use the coffee button to be, we're done pointing stories, let's move on and go somewhere else. But that's effectively what the idea here is, if that all makes sense. So a
Yeah.
lot of these stories are just around kind of basic level pages. Like their join page, there was a lot of stuff. They've got this story description, they've got these sessions and all of that stuff. We don't need all that garbage. Like we're small. We'll probably add more as we go, and then hopefully the reliability is, well, since I'm the one hosting it in Azure, slightly more reliable. Like I don't know if this site just occasionally buckles under its popularity, which is possible
Mhm.
because we've been in the middle of sessions and all of a sudden people get kicked and that kind of thing. It's like, I don't know what's going on, but maybe ours won't be as popular. And if we do get popular and we have to like rev and scale out, sure, so be it. So there's what we're building. There's the repo. Okay, let's talk code then a little bit, because somebody may have had some fun the other night building stuff. So I'm gonna close all my tabs. Oh, this is the wrong one. This is the hackathon repo. So for anybody who didn't catch that, see YouTube stream. Other Visual
And that was
Studio.
essentially the same stack, right?
It was basically the same stack, and I've shamelessly stolen some of the exact setup that we did because I kind of liked the setup that we did during that hackathon. It worked really well for our team. I can't speak to Reese's team, but like this was effectively the setup that we've got. So I know.
Yeah, ours was pretty much the same. I think that's what it comes out of the box, right? When you just do a new project.
This is pretty close to file new project, but there's a couple key things that I've changed. So
Okay.
things like editor config are cleaned up. I fixed up the generated GitHub action so that it works for things like PRs, because the default one doesn't give you PR stuff out of the box. I threw in Dependabot because what I really love every Sunday night is lots of emails about my NuGet packages being updated. So that's exciting. If I get motivated, I'll add another thing in here to auto accept Dependabot PR, so I don't even have to click the buttons because I'm too lazy for that. I've done a bunch of stuff with like turning on nullability and implicit usings and adding to the using sets in shared directory build props and targets files. This one's empty for the moment, but I do have that all set up. The test projects, I also have additional global using set up for things like XUnit and AutoMock. And then the package references. Close, Robert. Blazor, which is just like WPF, I promise. But pulling all of these things in, this was the bug that I ran into earlier where when you add unit test projects, your deployment starts failing because you accidentally publish your unit test projects by default if you don't set is publishable false on all of them. So setting that up in one place so that then my unit test projects, my CS project for the unit test projects looks like that, which I get real happy when I see a CS project that looks like that. This is like gold. It's like I have done
Right.
nothing.
Nice.
But as you can see, like the unit tests themselves are just straight empty. So I may have done a bunch of work for nothing, but it made me happy. The other thing I did is on the client side. So a lot of this is the default out of the box. And let me pull up. You'll note I've changed the main layout page just so that there's a little logo in the corner. The about shells out to Microsoft Learn ASP.NET docs. Obviously that needs to be changed. None of this stuff lines up, but a lot of the default pages from the file new project are somewhat useful. So for example, if we go /counter, load. There we go. That was shockingly long for being on localhost, but we can do the click me. This is the one that I think will probably be the most educational for you, Jared.
Okay.
So the counter page, I think, like I left it in and I modified it to use the MVVM stuff, but I anticipate just throwing this thing completely away because this is just their default example. Here's a button, here's a count. Don't think it's going to work just fine for you, right? But I updated it with sort of the structure that we used before that I kind of liked. So first thing to note, your at page, this is like your routing stuff. So I was able to hit on my page /counter to get to here because it was declared like that. You'll note page title automatically sets it just like if you were doing like the title element in your header on your HTML page. And then the rest of this body in here, because you're inside of a Razor template, I have you done much with Razor? Or not so much?
No, if you're asking me, no.
Okay. I was gonna say, I know Reese is basically an expert, more or less.
I mean, I
don't
think
know
I
about
get the
that.
idea of it. It's a lot like Django in the sense of you were doing server-side rendering, really just blending HTML with C# is what it looks like, at least.
Yes. The weird part is what's going to be server and what's not. That's where this starts to get a little more interesting. But you are absolutely correct. So the magical @ symbol is what toggles you between HTML and C# mode, as far as what you're referencing. And then you'll note I've got this magical view model property. This was something that Kelly showed us, and I imagine what he's actually going to talk about at that conference. So if this is interesting to people, come to conference. Kelly will tell you more. But this component base with a view model automatically registers up for property change notifications, and being able to do the after rendering. Normal MVVM stuff would register up and actually care which property changed. This basically is forcing full refreshes on everything, which, at least for the simple stuff that we're doing, that won't be a performance problem. But that's how, when I come in here and I have this view model increment count, if I look at my counter view model, I've got this little observable property. My increment count just says current count ++. And when I click, this thing works by sheer magic. So there's a lot of things kind of going on under the hood, but let me unravel a few of them. So underneath the analyzers, this is the community toolkit. So people who watch my WPF streams, they're familiar with this absolutely beautiful library. If you aren't, YouTube streams. There's a introduction video that's awesome. This guy here generates out a bunch of source code for you. So I created a field, a private field, and slapped an attribute on top of it. That attribute gets picked up by this community toolkit source generator, and it generates out a bunch of extra code for me, effectively building out what WPF devs would know as like an iNotify property changed implementation, where it the setter for the property checks if the new value is different. If it's different, then it'll assign the value to the backing field and then appropriately raise the property changed event, all of that stuff that goes along with it. But it means that in terms of what we have to write, if there's something that you want to be notified of when it changes, make a field, slap an attribute on it, and you're done. And the rest of it just gets handled for you. All of that because in the component base, it's watching for property changed, and it's telling the front end, hey, the state's changed, go ahead and do this. And this is where I was commenting that there's a small difference when you're playing in Blazor about what's server side and what's client side, because all of this is happening client side. There's no postbacks or any server side generation here, because rather than writing with JavaScript, we get to play in WebAssembly instead. So our C# gets compiled down into effectively IL for the browser and run there. And then for more fun, we can attach a debugger to it. There is a fun gotcha when doing this. If you open the DevTools in your browser, a breakpoint in your browser will pause Visual Studio and vice versa. And some people like, it's great when you realize that's what's happening, and it's miserable when you go, why is it not responding?
Yeah.
So if you set breakpoints, check both, because it can break you. But yeah, Robert commented in the chat too that there's also things like code blocks where you can literally start, like if you want to dive in and do other stuff in here, right? If I do the @ with the curly braces, I'm now free to, start writing for loops and do whatever I want inside of code. So that's the server side rendering bit, or server side rendering is not quite the right word. That's the thing that would be closest to your server-side rendering. Again, this all gets shipped down to the client in one package. You can kind of see that, I believe, in the dev tools. Yeah, open. Pretty sure it shows it. Pretty sure. I didn't test any of this, so if we go sources, I believe, and I just hard refresh this, we should see the whole kit and caboodle come down. That's part of why sometimes this download is initially slow, but once it's loaded, it's fast. Wasm, is this the guy? I think this is the guy that contains all of the stuff, which nobody wants to read this.
So you can't really see then. So it's not transpiling everything into JavaScript?
Correct. It is not transpiling into JavaScript. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't debug it, right? So, for example, if we want to come in here, right, and I want to set a breakpoint, and I come over here and I click me, like, we can debug this.
That's really cool. I guess the whole point
and there is.
Sorry, go ahead, Reese.
I was going to say there is JavaScript interop too that a lot that's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, because you can get back all the way if you need to do JavaScripty stuff because there's not something exposed. You can get back to it if you need to. So there is all of that, which is kind of cool in my opinion. So this is, I left the counter, and then what was the fetch data one? So this is another one that's worth noting that, again, these are all the file new project bits, but I left them in for the purposes of showing, because I kind of felt like we'll delete them when we're ready to, but they make for good examples. So this one here is pulling back data from a web API. So you'll note the key thing when you're looking at this, the client project, this is the thing that's going to get bundled up in that WASM package and shipped down to the browser. But there is, just like you're used to with the server side stuff, there is a like back-end controller. So for example, I've got this weather controller that this matches the old ASP.NET Core setup, where it's just, give me the weather upcoming, right? And you can kind of see balmy, freezy, scorching, and all of that. And if we look over here, this is where you start to see some of the other fun stuff. So you can do DI level injection and say, yeah, by the way, give me an HTTP client. And now HTTP is now defined inside of this guy where I can access it in code. And you'll note down at the bottom, they have a code block. And this is the reason why, I'll circle back to the view model stuff, but they then use the HTTP client to query the weather forecast. And the only way, because the question then is, if this client thing comes down to the browser, how does this HTTP client know where this endpoint lives? Right? Like this isn't a fully qualified URL, and it needs to go to, localhost, port number / weather controller. But where that's actually coming from is inside of this guy's program. When he gets compiled, his DI registration registers an HTTP client with the base address already set to the hosting environment's base address. So there's this fun thing where this server actually is what is running on the back end and serving everything up. But at the end of the day, the browser is going to receive this client package, which gets sent down. I'm trying to remember where all of this gets. Kill the using while I'm in here. Boom, die. Let's see. Add Razor pages. I'm trying to remember where it might be this. Yes. Configures the application to serve Blazor WebAssembly framework files from the root. So this magical guy here is what's enabling the server to actually send that WASM file down to the browser.
So the weather forecast string, the request URI, where else is that defined then? I mean, I see the controller for it, but I don't see the link between the two. I guess I still don't understand that.
No, so that is totally fine. So yeah, so the thing to note here, and let's just hit this guy real quick. So when the route name here that's set with the square braces controller. So this is going to be weather forecast because spelling counts. So that's the actual to hit the API. That's the full URL. So it is just
Oh,
host
gotcha.
server / weather forecast.
Okay.
So yeah, so there's the link. So this you can imagine is going to get concatenated with the / on the end of it for weather forecast, and then the host address is what's getting configured here.
Okay.
So that it knows how to link those things together. So if it was nested more deeply than that, or you needed a deeper route or pass query parameters or whatever, all of that goes there. Yeah. The only thing that this doesn't enable very well is when you want to write tests over this. Like if you wanted to unit test this is now a pain in the neck to unit test. Because you either have to go through one of the testing frameworks or do UI tests or something or whatnot, which this is where Kelly's brilliance came. He's like, well, this feels like an MVVM problem. Let's just take the logic out of our view, per se, out of our Razor file and move it into a view model class. That way we can have our view look like this, and our view model is now nothing special, right? There's nothing special about this counter view model class. This is a regular C# object. Yeah, there's some source generators, but these source generators are just generating properties. At the end of the day, I still have just a C# object with a property on it and a public method. Done.
And that observable property, is that from a different toolkit, or is that from the MVVM one? Or
that's from the community toolkit MVVM library. So that one is coming in via this reference here. So that's where that magic comes from. And we only picked this one up because this library is quickly becoming the most popular MVVM library out there. Yeah, I did a whole stream on their 8.0 release, and it blew my mind, all of the cool stuff that was in it. And so,
nice.
So now we keep using it for everything because it is awesome and highly performant and amazing. So there's lots of libraries out there that I'm sure would work. This just happened to be our favorite, so we picked it. Okay. Other questions? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So given all of that, let's go build something. Close. Close. I gotta remember where that's the dev tools. I don't want the dev tools. Close that. Nope, that's the wrong.
So it sounds like for the client side, the process would be creating a view model for whatever you're wanting to build, and then creating the Razor page for it.
Absolutely.
It's pretty simple.
It is very simple. And Kenny added an extra issue in here, so we're going to ignore that for a moment. Okay.
Did you, hey, real quick, when we're talking about the view models, did you come up with a rule of thumb? Like, is there some acceptable amount of code that should be in the Razor file, or are you just going pure, put all the code in there, even if it's maybe one function, or you know what I mean?
I think the general rule of thumb that we went with is if it's anything that's like business logic-y that should be tested, put it in the view model. Like, it's okay to have code in the Razor page. It's not like don't put any code in there ever. But if it's
view specific kind of stuff, perhaps maybe.
Yeah, but anything business logic-y related, we tried to pull out of our Razor files. And it really business logic-y came down to the definition of anything we wanted to be able to test. Easily test.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because if you don't write tests, the benefits of the view model start to dwindle really fast. Especially in a framework like this that doesn't have a lot of the native binding stuff. So it's like,
it'd be a little more overhead than it's worth, maybe.
Yeah, so that was really all it was a clean separation, so that we had a nice, easy way of bringing those things back and forth, and that was it. Okay, let's pick on one of these issues and then go ahead and attack it. This one seems easy. Jared, this one's your name.
Yeah. I was trying to find that low hanging fruit, and I thought, okay, I
Perfect.
could do this.
Perfect.
You gonna lead it, Jared, or?
Sure.
I mean, like, so let's start with this. Based on all that, where do we go first for this?
So the landing page, it just said it wanted what, a link to create a session, a link to join a session. That was it.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's really again going for a tiny level MVP.
Mhm.
Effectively, if this page were easier for me to look at,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
There's a lot of stuff here, but I think what we need is this, this, and this,
Yeah.
or their equivalents thereabouts.
Right. Yeah. Then they got all their marketing stuff in there.
Yeah, and it also I don't know. So I should call out Alan real quick because he named this. So when I asked him what we were calling this, he immediately jumped on pointer star because this is how you do a pointer. And we're pointing thing.
I see what you did
Yeah,
there.
I thought it was clever.
Well, I don't get points for the name. Alan gets points for it. He also then proceeded to then go and get the domain.
Oh, nice.
I wanted pointer. Oh, this is pointing. Pointer.
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
There's because I believe one of these. Yeah, Alan does point out that star is only it's supposed to be the little asterisk in all cases, unless we're talking about code or things where putting an asterisk wouldn't count. In which case, then we'll spell out star. Why is this thing not redirecting? I thought we had set up. So the actual project should be called Pointer. Oh, now Alan wants me to rename everything. Okay, Alan. We aren't doing that tonight.
Pointer star. It looks like we got it. Right?
Well, no, he's positing that we should drop the word star and just call it pointer. But that requires dropping 4 characters on the end of a lot of things. Now, I'm fine
Gotcha.
with a massive find and replace. Anybody else working in the repo will probably hate me about that point. Because when you rename the repo on GitHub, you get all kinds of fun, scary warnings like, are you sure you're about to break all your hyperlinks? Yep.
So
Yep.
we're just calling it
Pointer.
Just calling it pointer.
Just pointer. I will do
Okay.
my best. Okay, so
All right.
this is the page that I think we want to go through and put stuff on.
Yeah.
So
So if this were me, I think the first thing I would do is in index.razor, which is already the landing page, stub out some and I'm not a UI designer whatsoever, so
I'm gonna fix this
buttons.
so it's called. Okay.
One button for taking you let's see, the create session window or page, and then another one for join a session. And I don't know if the join a session would have like some kind of
They called
number
it a
input.
room on. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's called a room on the
Room.
in the issue. I don't know if that matters versus the.
Yeah, let me check.
I mean, the naming sometimes, you know.
No, you are good. So I believe room was the terminology I got from Alan. So room might be the better. Yeah, we may want to go with room.
Yeah, number one says a voting room.
Yeah. Whether that was intentional or not, Alan should know better than to give me words. We will use room because that's a thing. The other thing I will point out is, so I pulled in some styling bits. I will show those to you. So when it comes to, let's see, styling, I just picked one because I wasn't given any directions. And so I was like, this looks pretty. Let's use this. So I did. But
good.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I thought that looked nice too.
Yeah,
That's what you did. You use
yeah, so I literally went to one of the pages that has a whole bunch of the Bootstrap themes and went, that looks pretty. And that was the sum total of the thought that went into this. There was a little more thought in the I don't want light theme. So there was that because, yeah, I wanted something with a little more darker feel to it because reasons. And then
it looks nice.
yeah, and if you want, the other thing is, I should probably do a new tab. There is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Bootstrap docs. If you want to know the vast majority of stuff available for you for like building stuff out, the the Bootstrap docs are actually quite good for seeing all the things I can.
So you just went ahead and kept the stock Bootstrap stuff, because sometimes people change the styling out or whatever.
Yeah, I was too lazy to do that. But in terms of what we have at our disposal, I figured start there, post MVP if or when somebody wants to play designer for me, that'll work great.
Oh no, yeah, no, I think you did a good choice. It looks good.
Okay, so I'm gonna clear some of this stuff out for you, Jared. I don't recall if one of you guys knows off the top of your head. Correct me, but the Bootstrap, because they've got the nice grid stuff. What's the
I know it starts like you're talking about containers and
yeah, this thing for laying out
yeah.
example of fluid
Oh yeah,
container. Yeah,
the grid system or whatever.
this be what I want. That way we can, because I think ultimately we want to kind of slap this stuff inside of something like this. Do you guys have preferences on how this ends up looking?
Mm-mm.
What do you know thinking? I mean, we could
Simpler the better, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, and then what is the magical incantation?
You're talking about for buttons now, or which one are you looking
Yeah, I
for?
was looking at where because we've got your two buttons, and I was trying to figure out how we actually wanted this to lay out on the page itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like if you use a MT dash, or actually, sorry, COL as the class, you can specify, I believe it's
Right, these type of things,
out of,
right?
yeah, so extra
'Cause-
small or there's medium. So if you did like call dash MD4 for those two, or MD6 for those two, it should split them.
What's the difference?
Uh,
So you're positing
I
each of
think it's
these in kind of their own cell type thing? Is that the
yeah. And you make them because then they'd be two columns side by side on the same row. And sorry, I think it's call dash. Is it MD6 or MD dash 6? I don't remember.
I don't know. I was dash 6, I
Dash,
guess.
yeah. And I think you can put on the row, you could essentially say like this, and this is, I haven't read official documentation, but I think you can put, let's just try that, see what happens.
I'm trying to remember. The hot reload I've had very mixed results with. So I usually wait about half a second and go, I give up, and then restart the thing. Because the startup time is usually significantly less. Hot reload is one of those things that, like with the Net 7 stuff, it's supposed to be just flawless, and it's not just flawless. Just
Yeah, it's
disappointing.
kind of like data binding.
Yeah. Okay, so we got button. Really do anything,
Yes.
but that's a little better.
We could add some styling on those too.
Yeah, and then we're gonna need something. We're gonna need to slap something in here, I think, because we're gonna want the join to have, because I think we want to do like 1.5 or something, because the grid system's out of 12, isn't it, in Bootstrap?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just did 6 because then it would split
Right. I'm just thinking that
split it
we might want
evenly.
to some sort of inputty thing there to bring it in.
Oh, so we're talking about are you talking about
Yeah,
for
well, for
the
the joined
room
room,
number?
yeah, for the joined room, we're gonna need to take in some sort of room number or similar for it. Really should just leave that issue open. Why do I keep closing it? Close
Yeah,
that.
it says providing an ID to be able to join an existing one, I think.
Yeah. And for now, I think we'll just take an arbitrary string or similar, and we'll lock it down more in a bit. And I think if I remember right, sorry, I'm gonna go steal. When in doubt, it's not stealing if you steal from yourself, right?
Yeah, it's interesting is now I'm thinking about this. So to make it's this I think the idea of simple, you kind of have to think about how far to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Like super simple would be 2 buttons. That's all there is. You click one to create your own room, click another one to join a room. And then as you get navigated, the create room handles its own problems and the join rooms handles its own problems. So you could either just click join room and then on the next page it gives you some prompts to put in input as far as the join or the room number, or you could do it here. But you know, I was just thinking like because whether you create your own room or you join a room, you're gonna need to enter, your name at least of who you are, right? So it almost makes me wonder, do you put those things at the index and you say, um, enter your name because no matter which way you go, you're gonna need that?
Right.
I don't know. This is why
Well,
I'm not a designer.
and so in the chat, I don't know if you're watching the Twitch one. Alan points out that he's like, I don't even think you need a join room for MVP because you get a link from the room creator. So theoretically, okay.
Yeah.
So let's go. Okay.
That'd be simpler.
Hey, something real quick, Kevin, I was going to point out too, with those classes right there, if you hit control space when you're typing it, it gives you a little list of them. Like if you go back space a couple over the 6. Oh yeah, I like that too. But yeah, if you hit control, yeah.
Oh, look at that. Oh, okay. I'm just so used to web stuff never working.
Yeah, I think they finally got it.
It's okay. So what if we do something like this then, right? So because look at that. Guys, I centered a div. Does that count?
Yeah,
does that count as centering a div?
Oh man, that's the hardest thing to do here. What did you do?
Does that count?
No, I don't think that's what.
Does that count as centering a div?
I think
hey, I say, yeah, sure.
I mean,
what do you say, Jared?
Hold on.
The proof's
Maybe
in
we
the
should make
UI.
sure that it works first.
Oh yeah, I guess we're gonna test it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I should at least launch it to make sure that it works.
It compiles, right?
Ship it. There you
Okay.
go. Well, let's at least put a little styling on that, Kevin. On that button, throw a class modifier in there and just do btn space btn dash primary button primary. That'll at least make it not look like a Windows 98.
You apparently didn't see our hackathon project, Jared. We legitimately styled for 98.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that most people voted
I think that hit a little too close to home because that was like the first. I mean, that was the first operating system I remember ever using as a kid, and so when I saw that, it made me think that maybe there was some technologies out there that people were using that just like kept that styling. I was like, oh man. But yeah, there's button. I think button secondary will make it a lighter color.
Okay. I'm fine with primary for now. I mean, it's going to be the one big thing on the screen, so let's roll with it. While we're in here, before we get too carried away, let's get the navigation wired up for this guy. And I'm shamelessly just looking at what we did on the other ones because why think harder than I have to? View model, navigate to game board and join. Index view model. Oh, so it's literally just that. Okay, I'm gonna just poach that. Navigation is a navigation manager. Cool. Okay, so we don't currently have a view model for this guy, so that's going to be a little bit of a problem. So let's do that.
Yeah,
we don't even technically need to, right? Because
is this the point where you start thinking about breaking that onto a component at all, or like like a room component? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm somewhat tempted to just be, given how simple this is. I'm kind of tempted to just go right.
Just drop that in the code block. Yeah.
just straight up do this. Right, and so we're gonna go private, something like that. Navigate to what do we go call this? Because the next screen in Flow asks the user for their name. So navigate
to
to
room.
Sure. Okay, and then
Would there be a text box here for their name, or
I don't know because the person creates the room, gives the link to the other participants. The other participants click the link. They need to land on a page that asks them for their name and then joins them to the room. I'm kind of thinking what we do is we have a
I see.
single room page, and if they come in without a name, we set the UI prompting them for the name, and then once they specify a name, we just swap out it under the hood, right? Because then if people get smart, because we had talked about maybe like even though these rooms are going to be kind of randomly generated IDs, if people wanted to keep the same link, they could all, as long as everybody's using the same room ID, they could all get back in. Like if somebody wanted to put it on like an Outlook invite for a reoccurring meeting, as long as everybody uses the same ID, we all join to the same place. And if people get really smart and they want to tack their name on the end of that query string too, they can get all the way in and have their name pre-filled for them as well. That's my thought, because then if you bookmark the page, it's
yeah,
a much easier. Like I like when things don't require postbacks for simple data.
So
That was my thought.
So you're thinking the URL has some, /join / with the room ID, and if you hit that URL, it's gonna take you somewhere where you need to enter your name. But if there was like almost like a query parameter on the end of that URL, we pull that out and say this is your username, and then it takes you to the kind of the end page of where you're trying to be.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of thinking that we only need the two pages, the landing page and the room page. And the room page kind of has two states of when you hit it, do I know your name? Yes or no. If I know your name, then you're allowed in and you get to participate. If I don't know your name, I prompt you for a name and then I let you in to participate.
Gotcha.
It's kind of what I'm thinking. Now we could break those into two separate pages, but then you have to do page postbacks, and I don't know if there's a big advantage to doing that versus just having it all in one. We need to get the navigation manager thingy mabobber. I want one of you. Pretty please. And if I recall correctly, I get that. And I actually whacked in the original code. Is it here? One of these guys. Oh, I may have deleted the code when I was playing with it. Look at that. Get me on main. For anybody who hasn't seen it, get Kraken 9.0 released, and it's mwah.
The new loading screen's pretty
Slick.
Yeah, he's got like dye on his tentacle. Pretty weird.
I will say this ghosted branch thing, I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I do. Where you hover on a commit and it tells you what branch that commit is likely in. Like I saw it and I was like, oh, that looks cool. And then it's like, oh, this is actually like useful stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to like start at the bottom and work your way up.
And follow the line to figure out what branch you're on.
Sure.
Okay.
Before we do anything, can we make this? Can we fix just something in the UI here when you're ready?
I was gonna go look at it. What do you want to fix?
So just remove the two empty divs that you threw in there, surrounding it, and after the call MD2, do space text dash center.
Now that's just too easy though. You're really ruining the whole joy of me centering a div. Okay. And I'm trying to remember.
Do you even need the column at that point, or?
Yeah, if it's just by itself, I don't know. Here, I could try it.
And I think this gets us. I don't know if you recall. What it takes to get that navigation bit in place, but I think that's all it takes.
So the navigation, is it a built-in?
Yeah, I don't know if you have to inject it. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the magical incantation because we did it in the view model where because it's already pre-registered for your DI. So you don't have to register the navigation manager. That's already something built in. But I can't remember in the code block, do I do it here or is there like I can't remember if there's a slash inject. Oh, I think
Yeah,
this is it.
you can do it up there like that. Yeah.
Inject navigation manager, navigation, like that, right? And then this dies. And then this goes like this goes like this goes like this, and I don't need this anymore. And the world's a happy place. All right, and so I'm gonna just do this really quick. I kind of want to steal what's on here real quick, and I'm just gonna rename this to room, and I'm gonna delete the contents, and because I think this will actually resolve the first issue, and then we'll call it a room, right?
So the navigation manager, I mean, it's obviously something built in. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what really the point of it is. Is it an abstraction so that you don't need to?
Yeah, so you don't need to deal with any of the extra stuff around figuring out routes and navigation things.
Yeah, like doing client-side routing and stuff.
Does it also handle like route guards and stuff like that? Route guarding?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Yeah, you might have to test it out.
I was gonna say I do not actually know the answer to that question. I will say I'm somewhat new to this as well, so I don't know all the things yet.
I'm just kind of following her along here. It's got to go through my own fingers, you know?
Well, there's something to be said about actually typing it yourself.
It forces you to think a little more about it.
Okay, so there's that. Jared?
Yeah?
My button's
not centered anymore.
Hey, mine's centered. What else you got in there?
Oh, was I supposed to put it inside of a fluid container in a row? Or do I
just container, not fluid.
So drop this.
Is that
do I need the row too or not?
You don't need the column. You do need the row. Yeah.
I don't
Is
need
the container fluid for mobile?
I actually don't know what container fluid is.
Okay, so we're gonna go there. We're gonna do that. I do want to check and see if this. Oh, I didn't bind the button to anything. So if you don't bind the button to anything, it will not work. In case you were wondering. I know. Shocker.
Plot twist.
Yeah. Where's the magical button?
It's just an on-click, right?
Yeah. But you want to do this one because
there's different versions of it.
Because you want to get if you do your regular one like you would do in JavaScript, no worky. Well, it'll work, but it won't call your C# code in WASM. So if you want to do there.
Well, I mean that's still just the are you saying like the Bootstrap one being on -click, or what are you talking about?
Putting an @ in front of it.
Oh, I see.
Because the @ is your escape character for getting into I don't want to say real code, but real code.
What's the deal with Copilot with this? I'm not getting a whole lot of suggestions.
That is a good question. Copilot has not been overly helpful to me. So good news.
I wonder if it's not working with Blazor yet or something.
Well, the thing is Copilot is fairly language agnostic because it's tried to help me out in things that are not code at all, and it's been I got you. It's like no, Copilot, simmer down. This is not.
It can help you write. It'd be kind of a fun exercise to like write a short story using only Copilot. Like you can introduce like 3 words to fill out, as much as you can get out of it. I
think you're describing Chat GPT. Like I think that's legitimately what
I was gonna say.
but like I just and I wonder if the issue is like you're saying because it's in a .razor file, like within the navigate to room function. I just did like a comment that said console log today's date, and I thought for sure that Copilot would be like, okay, I at least know how to do that. But it didn't give me anything.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's something about the integration here where it loses its mind with certain files
Yeah,
and
the
goes
code,
hands off.
the IntelliSense and the code stuff hasn't been working very well. I mean, it's just now getting to be pretty decent, but Blazor's pretty new.
Yeah, so let's go here. So I'm gonna say this fixes number 4. Any objections? Great.
I wasn't even paying attention when you tested it.
Well,
Oh yeah, that's how fast it was.
well here, so I can prove. I will prove that it works. I mean, we've got a button. We click it. We go to the other room page. I should really put the asterisk on that one. I wonder why that one still shows pointer star.
Mine's not
Oh,
doing
it's
anything.
probably it. Oh, this is. Yeah, it's because it hasn't actually loaded it in yet. But so you create room. We go to the room. Huzzah! The header's still there. Takes us back to the room. Yay!
Interesting. So where is your gonna be? Where
Nice.
is like so for this is good thing for me. So I have what I think is exactly what you have.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not getting anything here on the click. So I was just trying to debug it. I'm looking in, I'm inspecting in the browser, not seeing anything there. I don't see anything popping up in the output within Visual Studio.
So, but you have your navigate to room down here, correct? And
Yep.
this is an @on click.
Correct.
And do you have the inject line on number 2?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
So and we could. I don't want to stop everybody. I was just hoping this would be a good point to be like, okay, if I run into something like this, where should I look?
Yeah. So I guess first question I would also ask is, do you see when you set a breakpoint in your method, do you get the filled circle or the empty circle?
Empty circle.
Ah, so it's not connecting up with your browser.
You need to rebuild it or restart the browser, man.
Interesting.
I would tell you to rebuild. That hot reload experience, like I said, it has been very hit or miss.
Gotcha. Okay, I was trying to use that. I thought that would be a really, really cool feature.
And I've gotten it to work sporadically.
It is when it works.
When it works great, but
yeah, and that's usually how, if your breakpoint doesn't line up, that means that the debugger doesn't have symbol information. Okay, so we're gonna go here. Let's check it real quick.
Oh, you know what else? I didn't create a somewhere for it to go. That's also a problem.
Landing page. Boom. Okay, and this is my favorite Get Cracking interaction, right? I've got a local branch, made a commit. Drag, drop, push, and open PR. Mwah.
It's pretty rad on.
Fixes #4.
Wow.
Create pull request.
That's pretty impressive.
And then I do wish there was a little more integration with GitHub, such that I didn't have to open the GitHub page only to enable the auto merge.
So I apologize here, but so did you create, when I wasn't looking, did you create a room.razor page?
I did, and I did it while you weren't looking because I didn't want you to correct me on anything. But all I did is, so I copied the counter one because
okay.
I'm going to want the component-based stuff here in a minute. But I just set its route at /room, and then I deleted all the contents and just dialed it down to something stupid.
I see. Okay.
Right? That way it's... Because I figured this will be probably the next thing that we build out, but this is not got much to it.
I'm trying to hang with the experts here, and I'm like, hold on, what's going on here?
When are they
so that's
here?
really slick, though. That you don't, like, I've been living in, Django land for a while, and to do the same thing, we would need, a template, which is essentially our Razor page. You would need a view you would need you need to set up all the URL, routing and things like that. So
That's like a lot of
this
typing, Jared.
it's
We're not net
Copilot helps
devs. We
out.
don't we don't
Yeah,
we
right.
don't do a lot of typing. We're all about as lazy as possible here.
You guys are living in the beauty land of statically typed. You can tell when something's not going to work before you even try it. I miss
Being
those
able to
days.
write C# on the client has like been my dream since I started
I
programming.
agree. I cannot tell you the first time I did an MVC site, I was so annoyed, like having to do data validation in JavaScript and then having to fall back and do the same thing on the server. I was like, I'm writing this code
Oh my god.
twice. This is so
Yeah, right.
annoying.
Yeah, in 2 different languages. Yeah.
Correct. Or heaven forbid, like I remember specifically doing a regex validation for something and discovering all the ways where regex is different in JavaScript than C#. And I'm like, I hate this so much.
Oh.
Because C#
Oh
can
no.
do look behinds and JavaScript, if I remember correctly, is can't do look behind. There's some the JavaScript regex implementation doesn't have one of like the look aheads or look behinds. I can't remember which it is. And it bit me so many times. I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. Okay. So
What's the sorry,
go ahead.
what's the keyboard shortcut in Visual Studio to like navigate backwards and forwards? Oh, I see it right there.
Control
Control minus.
control minus and control.
Control dash. Yeah.
Yeah, I will admit I tend to go with control tab for just cycling between tabs because control tab does jump you to the like when you cycle through tabs, it's based upon most recently used. So it's not like control tab where it just goes to the next one in a browser, which does trip me up all the time. Is control tab will take you to your previous tab that you were on, regardless of where it was in the list. Whereas in a browser, it goes next tab. And so
Interesting. And you could hold it down. That's pretty cool.
yeah, and see where you're gonna go and figure out. Oh, look at
Yeah.
that! See, yet another bug. I keep filing these bugs because I run with slightly larger font settings, and the
Oh,
number of
interesting.
areas in Visual Studio where fonts get cut off or things don't size correctly. If anyone on the Visual Studio team is watching, please, please, please stop hard coding sizes. It's never going to be right. Okay, and soapbox. Okay, so let's start with I think what we so and feel free to correct me, but I think what we want to do is if you come into the room, we want the room to have like optional query parameters for well, I guess we really can't do just straight room like this. We almost need room slash
I was gonna say
room
you need an
ID, don't we?
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
And
or
then with an
ID.
optional query parameter of like person name.
Hmm.
That way if I bookmark it, I can bookmark my room with my name and always drop back in.
Yeah, but when you book, so here's the thing though, is the creator of the room, are we gonna let them decide the ID of the room, or are we gonna randomly generate an integer for them?
So I wasn't even going to do an integer. So I had this clever idea. I've been looking for a. Let's see. So that one should drop off. Yeah. So that's merged now.
Even so,
yeah.
any ID though, I guess, like alphanumeric. Are we gonna give them that choice, or are we gonna generate something for them? Because it looked like with the old system that we're replacing, it looked like they just generated like a 5-digit integer for you. And with that, you wouldn't be able to bookmark it unless you kept that room open
Right. And
forever,
that's
right?
so I was picturing. So I have been looking for an excuse to use this library for a while. It's cool and pretty, and I want to find a use case for it. And I'm shamelessly trying to shove. I have a golden hammer, and this looks like a nail, but everything may look like a nail. So this is the same sort of generator like what YouTube does for being able to generate their ID. So you get what looks to be random, but can be persistent, right? That way you can have those IDs, because I'm sort of picturing this working almost like your unlisted YouTube videos, right? Where as long as somebody has the magical link, they can get in. But I'm a little hesitant to let people just type in their own, because I can see that being a nice area for abuse. but maybe we're
Yeah, I
letting them
feel like
type
we
in their
should
names,
generate
and
them.
that's less problematic.
Yeah, I would agree.
And yeah, like yeah, absolutely. You could have the best. You could have you could have best of both worlds in the sense that we'll generate it for you, but it could be persistent.
Right. Well,
Um,
and at the end of the day, so one of the fun things, it's not the right website. The Control F5. One of the nice things that we get out of the box is Signal R built in. So we can, I'm picturing these IDs being used for groups inside of Signal R as well. Because then when you join a room based on a particular ID, you get put in a group in Signal R, and that's how it controls the communication between it for people doing the votes and everything. So all of that gets
Yeah,
wired up for you, which
you could
set it that
simply
way
enable
gets.
chat that way too if you wanted, so that people could talk back and forth or whatever. I
See,
mean, as a
Reese is
added
already
feature.
scope creeping, and it's not even it's
This
not
is
even 10, and he's
version
already
2.
adding scope. But yes, that was my thinking, is rather than letting them necessarily pick, we could generate up an ID, but then give it a reasonable looking thing like this. That way it's a little simpler. And again, we don't have to. This was just my initial thought of, hey, let's go through and do something like that. That way we can do, some sort of random ID, but then, and maybe set up some given salt or whatever that we want on it.
it would be I mean, I think it would provide. I know we're not necessarily looking at security because there's no authentication. Anyone who has the link can join and name themselves whatever they want. But if we did generate the room IDs, then we could at least have a little bit of ambiguity as to you can't just punch in random things and hope to get into somebody's room.
Right. Yeah, which is why I was picturing, if as long as we make our size fairly large. And the other thing we could do is we could actually hide away our salt too. Like right now, I'm thinking if we just hard code it, like it doesn't need to be uber secure, but this is something we could bring in from like an environment variable. That way, if somebody wanted to try to brute force and guess their way into somebody else's room, it's a little bit harder to do so because the sample size on this is huge. Plus, it does have little things like tries to avoid basic curse words. That way you don't randomly generate and then, because that's always the scary thing when you randomly generate letters. It's like, right. Like one of my algorithms, my simple solution was you can delete like all vowels and that saves you a little bit, but not all the way.
Yeah.
Get you close.
Yeah, there's a mathematical certainty that eventually something will come up.
Correct. Correct. So that was my thought in terms of generating these rooms. I am wondering too if we should go through, so because I'm realizing that there was something on this milestone about giving people some ability to join as an observer. And now I'm wondering if maybe my comment about we just need the one room page, if we really do want to shove something between the actual room. We almost want like a lobby page.
So is the idea with the observer to not even allow them to vote?
Right.
Or is the idea that go ahead, please.
I was just saying maybe like for stakeholders or somebody like that.
Yeah, that's the exact case where it's happened before. Like on one of our teams, we've got a new PM coming in who's less familiar with the process, and so it's like, hey, go ahead, join the room, right? Don't do it because and part of it is the pointing poker site tries to get everyone to vote before you show the results, but part of it is sometimes you want somebody in there who may or may not want to or care to vote, right? Somebody who's basically just there to look.
I mean, that could be as simple or as complex as we want it, though. Like it could be when you join. I mean, there's a flag, like a lurker mode, that you click, and then it says
We're renaming observer to lurker, by the way. Carry on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, but you click that mode, and then it's like, okay, we're not going to try to use you in the calculations
Yeah.
for anything.
Yeah. And that could be
An even simpler way would be to just say, if you want to be an observer, just don't vote.
yeah, the
I
only
guess.
thing that gets weird
But
is
the
when
controls are still there, I guess.
yeah, well, and it does. So there could be a use case for that of just having it not vote. We would just have to deal with it when it comes for showing the votes. Where was it?
Oh, because you would be waiting for everybody's vote to tally it,
Right.
right?
Right, and so just in turn, like
Okay.
you, when you're seen on like pointing poker, where you see the list of people and you're waiting to know who's voted, the scrum master's waiting to see all those votes, and yeah, they can keep track in their head. Okay, this person doesn't count, but it can be a little annoying. It'd be nice
Sure.
to have those users kind of
Yeah,
displayed
right.
separately from everyone else.
Again, so if you click that button, that lurker mode, observer mode, whatever, and it almost grade you out on that list of like not waiting to see a check mark next to it for the PO,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah,
Or you have, two tables, voters, observers, and it just simply moves you from one to the other.
so let's do this for the moment. Let's ignore. Well, I should say, do we want to put a lobby page in the middle real quick, or with the anticipation of needing it, or do we want to try to keep everything just on the room page? Because it does seem like we could keep everything on the room page, but it's going to get a little more complex for
So if
dealing
we
with
had a,
those state changes, right? Because if the idea is we want to be able to have somebody come in as an observer, the other thing is allowing somebody to join as a facilitator, because that's one of the other limitations. Is if you're the one who creates the room, and then you need to leave the meeting for some reason, you get a call or whatever, somebody else has to go and make a new room, and everybody has to go and rejoin. It would be much nicer to just let somebody else come in and effectively set their role as a facilitator.
Pass the room to that individual.
Yeah, like it'd be nice if you could just take somebody in the room and just auto promote, but even if it was as simple as that one person has to rejoin and select their role as facilitator rather than team member or observer, that would work. Right? Just the ability to have multiple facilitators, I think, is the only real requirement.
So if we did have this lobby page, it does sound like there's some stuff on there at least, right? Like facilitator mode versus observer mode or lurker mode, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a role attached to each of these users, even though because there's no security on this, the role is self-enforced, and it really just comes down to what do you get to see, right? Like
and what can you do?
Yeah, it's socially enforced. If I join as a facilitator and I'm not meant to be a facilitator, I just get everyone on the call going boo, and then I get kicked off the team's call. It's great.
So I guess whoever creates the room is just naturally the facilitator, maybe.
Yeah, I mean that's your first facilitator, but having the ability to have somebody else come in. So I guess that's the question: is do we want a lobby that allows the user to enter name and select role, and then go into the room? Or do we want to do it all in the room?
It almost seems like the simplest thing would be you click the link, it takes you to the room. We detect that you don't have a name. A modal pops up and says, "Hey, welcome to the room. Please give us a name." And you don't really have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So then you pick the name, right? It would be, I think it would be the simplest for the user to be able to, if they could toggle observer mode, do it without having to leave and come back. Because what if for some reason you're, rolling over two meetings or whatever, right?
Right.
Like, okay.
So let the user change their role mid-flight, basically.
Yeah, and I think it also makes sense to allow the facilitator to change people's roles from within the room as well, right?
Got it.
So say us three join a call. Kevin, you started it, you're the room, so you're the facilitator.
Okay.
It'd be really nice to be able to right-click Reese's name and say, promote to facilitator. Now there's you two, so you could leave and Reese would still be there, right? I don't know. This is just spitballing. I've never used a tool like this.
I think I like it. I believe that meets requirements.
Yeah, just to throw this out there real quick. When I first heard you start to talk about that, I was imagining what you're saying is that there would be like this modal, right? And you said there would be a text box, And then I was also thinking you could also just have like a checkboxes. There are ones like make me a facilitator or make me an observer, or maybe it's a toggle button. Is that kind of what you were saying
I
on the
I'm not
initial
thinking
screen?
that you should. I don't think as someone joining the page, you should have the option to say, "Yep, I'm a facilitator." I think it needs to be handed to you. So whoever sets up the meeting establishes like, okay, well, these three
First
people,
one's
when
in
you
the
join the room,
facilitator, and they can promote
y-
others.
and they can promote other people. Yep.
What
So the
happens if the facilitator actually gets dropped out for some reason, has to rejoin? Like their internet connection goes down. Are they going to be able to say, "Oh, I'm a facilitator again," or what? What would happen?
That's a
hmm,
that's a good question. So because if we leverage SignalR for the rooms, we'll know about disconnects. I don't
Oh,
know. I
yeah,
don't know if we can handle the reconnect case, given that we don't have much. Um,
okay.
but we'd at least know when somebody drops, and if the facilitator drops, we could just pass the baton for them, right? It could just
yeah,
Yeah,
literally
just
yeah.
be
auto
grab
assign.
random next person in line. Whoever was second
Yeah,
hmm
in, you're up.
right.
That would
You're
be
now a
it. I
facilitator.
don't know.
Yeah.
If anyone's ever played the computer game Squad, but it's this online PvP multiplayer, and essentially you create a squad and people join the squad, and you work together. If you leave, I think it does just go down the line and say, well, who joined right after you? Now he's the new squad leader. Like, all right, that's just how it goes. I think Facilitator could work like that. Great.
Yeah, and there's a
Yeah.
comment here about basically in the chat of when someone drops, promote somebody for the facilitator. The idea would be nice if they reconnected, re-promote them back into facilitator. That might
Mhm.
get. I don't know because we don't have a lot of information about who the user is. I don't know if we can accurately detect that it's the same person coming back in, right? You could kind of do it based on name, but that feels real finicky. I'd rather just
Could you
let the
get
pass the baton, and then if they reconnect, that person just has to hand the baton back. It doesn't feel that bad.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
certainly we certainly aren't working in like a I don't think for our use case that it's going to be like this toxic environment. It's going to be people working together.
Yeah, and more importantly, if
Yeah.
somebody accidentally gets in that it ends up being a toxic person, like even though we aren't talking about building like a kick feature or anything, you just gen a new room, right? As long as we make sure that these room IDs are difficult to get by, like they would have to. It's kind of like if anybody grew up with those old two-way radios, right? If somebody else
A lot
happened
of
to be,
frequencies on
yeah,
there.
if somebody happened to get on your frequency, you just tell everybody, okay, switch to this one. Everybody jumps, and now the person's gone, right? We're just doing that in a more modern sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be fun to have like a kick feature though, where any person could kick any other person out. Just
Now that is definitely ripe for abuse, unless the
So,
person's
but
name is Kevin, and then we'd leave him in.
even though we're not doing like we're not using any kind of authentication here. I don't think it'd be incredibly hard to store some metadata when someone um creates a room that so say when the user clicks create room, you add your name in there. Maybe it generates a hash for you that's not just the room ID, something like a copy and paste. And if you get disconnected, you can join back in with this hash and we remember you as the original facilitator.
Yeah, the comment here
Uh,
is slap
I,
a GUID in a cookie or something to be able to re-identify them. Like
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that is definitely doable, right?
Or give the facilitator two URLs to share, one as an invite to everybody else and one for yourself in case you get dropped. And that somehow, I don't know, removes all other facilitators or whatever and makes you it. Yeah, I think it's going too far in the weeds, but anyways,
Okay, so
that's cool.
yeah, so let's run down this path then. So um let's assume for the moment that we're going to generate a room ID. Let's make it simple for the moment. I heard all room IDs are 123. Just for the case of simplicity for the moment. That way we can have this much set up, and then let's hack on this room thing a little bit because I think this is I'll actually put to do in front of here, right? Because this is actually something else for somebody else to um, generate up. No one said I couldn't use the picture as a glass. Sorry, I'm getting made fun of for my Mountain Dew cup.
Yeah, I noticed you only drank like half of that cup too.
Yeah. Like I said, I only brought one.
Was that from the Christmas party?
Yes, I say it's a random access memory for those people who can't read. I've only had one cup of Mountain Dew tonight. One.
That thing's gotta hold like 48 ounces easy.
It holds about 90% of a 2-liter. Don't ask me how I know. You have to defrag the memory to get the rest of the 2-liter in.
Wow.
Or use one of the smaller sharing utensils that came with the pitcher. Okay, co-pilot, this is not your time to shine.
I was gonna say it's waking up.
I was like, thank you, co-pilot. No, that's not correct. Okay, so we need to grab the query parameter here for the room ID. I think yes, I think is where we're going, and I'm trying to remember. So
yeah, I sent you. I don't know if you saw in our Teams chat. I sent you a link. If that was what you're looking for.
Probably. Yes. Okay. And we just want. I don't want GUID. I guess I can just leave the type off though, and it becomes string, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the default.
I think that if I remember correctly, that's what I saw before. So we're gonna do this as room ID, and we'll do it here. And then if I recall correctly, I can do something like code. I saw a little bit of Copilot trying to be helpful there for a minute. Want to go Copilot? No? You want to write the code out? There's the Copilot we know and love.
I'm not even getting close.
Wow.
How'd you get it there?
I talk nicely to it. I say nice things about it. And
he's got the Mountain Dew too.
Okay, hold on. It's actually I think what it's doing is analyzing your code right now and being like talking to my code, and they're like, I think these guys are working together. So just put in here whatever he
I'm not putting it past Copilot to like listen in on my mic.
Yeah, okay, hold on. It's catching up now. It's getting slow. It takes a little while though to read yours. All right. Okay, all right, I'm with you. That took way too long. So your room ID, so are you already working? Oh, interesting. So you're already inheriting. Okay, I'm catching up.
Yeah, so this guy here, it overrides on initialized. It's figured out that I have a view model with a room ID. Now, here's the question. It doesn't. Copilot, make room ID property.
That would creep me out.
Okay.
I'd just go to bed.
That would have been awesome.
I mean, I cannot eliminate it doing that. Okay. I don't know that we need this, but Copilot's telling me to do it, so I'm going to do it. There. Okay, so on initialize, we get the room ID. Let's just confirm that this much actually works. I think it does, but I'll just make absolutely certain. And like Jared, I know that you're probably on the earlier cap for time, but when it gets late, feel free to drop. I obviously have way too much caffeine in my system. And I'm also off tomorrow, so I have a double advantage.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. See, we're gonna work tomorrow. So.
Yeah.
Some of us gotta. Interesting. So
there's
what are we doing?
Okay, so that auto failed. What went wrong? Open Dev Tools. Show me. Is there console? So cannot provide a value for property view model on the. Oh, there is no register. So this is a good example here. I don't know if you can read that, Jared.
Did you see what? Did you see what? You see the chat? What Bam just put in there?
Yeah.
We're using the wrong comments, obviously.
Clearly. Yeah. For the room page with room ID. Well, so I think this is that's Chat GPT doing it, not Copilot. Clearly, we
Hmm.
like, yeah. But this comment here on the of why this thing's failing. So this is this is the error that you'll end up seeing when you forget to do your DI registration. So for example, I created a room view model,
Mhm.
but I have not registered it with my DI. And so because my room raiser says, hey, create me a room view model, it goes, I don't know what you're talking about. So we'll just register it, and then our world will become happier. So, and it's worth noting, these DI registrations live inside of the client's browser. So the idea of like scoped and singleton is a little weird because it's singleton instance per client. So that it gets you have to think about the DI rules a little differently when you're running inside the client project versus the server, because this runs on individual ones. Okay, room ID populated 123. Great. Okay. Okay, so we got a room ID.
Nice.
Sweet. And then I think where do you want to go next? Should
Is
we?
there one more simple thing we can do, and then I think I might drop off?
Well,
So
I was gonna say we
why
could look
am
at either like prompting for name. We could do like the query parameter because I think that's just like this, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah, just set it to whatever. Yeah.
I think that's how this works. Um, right, and I'm gonna turn on.
Oh yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
I guess this
Like,
one really has to be
well,
set in order for the route to make it in. You can't come
yeah,
in with an
yeah,
empty, but this one certainly could.
right. Yes, that one could be optional.
Let's confirm that this works, but I don't see why it wouldn't. Because I think that way we've got this, and then it'll be a matter of doing it. Just for your guys' own thing, if you want to help on this, jump in whenever you want, right? And like I said, wait, what are you? Unhandled exception occurred. How is there an unhandled exception? We were on the home page. Huh? We crashing on here. Oh, the character and parameter segment is not allowed. Oh, so I've done something wrong here. We'll have to look up query parameters. I wonder if you just, oh, I bet you just leave it off. I bet you that's what it is. I'm trying to remember because we did this before with,
Oh yeah.
I think this will do the same type of like model binding ASP.NET Core does, where if it sees it, it'll use it. If it doesn't, it's happy about it. Okay. So if I do 456 name gets Jared, because I am going to definitely masquerade as Jared.
I wouldn't do that if I were you. So when you were registering the
No, that.
room view model,
Mm-hmm.
it's builder services add scoped. Was there already something in there? I don't see anything else in there that's add scope. Oh, it's got
The
the
counter one
counter.
in there, and scoped is actually scoped is probably not overly useful.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so because again, the scope in this case is going to be around that browser session, not around anything related to other users.
Well, our program.cs looks quite a bit different from each other.
Are you looking at the program CS in the client project or the server project? Because there's two program CSs.
Okay,
Does yours look more like this
let me go. Let me get over
or
there.
like this?
I was definitely looking at the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, found it.
Yeah. So that'll be the key difference there. And Reese is once again on point. I'm guessing he's already solved my problem. Supply parameter from query attribute. Oh, look at that. That's what I want. Component parameter name, query parameter name. Huh. Okay. So if we go here and here, we want to do here, right? We want this to be name. And we do that button, and then we do that button, and then it all works just fine, and everyone's happy. I suppose I could set my launch settings.json to just take me there. That's the other advantage of taking things on the query string, is you can make your debugging life easier.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point. You could probably add that and then remove it later too if you wanted, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to use it just for debugging, maybe.
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely correct. You do need to set not the launch settings in client though. You want to set them down because you'll note that the project I'm actually launching is server, not client. So it does get a little different. It doesn't look like there's a launch URL, but for now I'm just gonna type it because 456 name gets Reese this time because I'm gonna masquerade as somebody else again. Come on. Sorry, there's nothing at this address. Oh, because I didn't type room / so it doesn't know where to go. Let's try this again. And come on. I am Reese.
Yeah. You might
Yeah.
want
You
to
don't
impersonate
sound nearly
somebody
as
else, though.
excited as
I was
I
gonna
expected
say.
you to be. That was a very lackluster. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm getting tired. I need some of
Understand.
your Mountain Dew.
Yeah, I was to say I would hand you some. It's just it doesn't go through the internet well.
Apply. I'm gonna
If you need one, there's
check.
one under my desk, Reese. You can steal it tomorrow.
I might just do that.
As long as you like the voltage. I believe there's like 2 or 3 cans of voltage under my desk. So help yourself.
Oh, yeah?
So now from the room view model, this is interesting.
Mhm.
So you're supplying the name in the as a parameter
Mhm.
in the room. Maybe you're already doing this in the room view model. Could I reference that name?
Not without adding it. So typically you would end up doing something like,
Oh, gotcha.
right, and forward it in, which is probably something
Gotcha.
worthwhile.
So you weren't necessarily doing anything with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing magical yet. But
You could point it straight at the view model too in the property, I think.
You
I don't know if
can.
that
There
would-
is a warning though about doing that. So there's a
Oh, is there?
specific analyzer that they actually enabled in Net 7 that cautions against parameter properties being anything other than auto props. Because if you have any
Oh, yeah, because
because
it's a
if you have any
parameter.
side effects, there's I'm trying to remember because I was
Right.
reading the GitHub issue on it where they were discussing building this analyzer. So if you do make a parameter, they really encourage auto props and then forward on elsewhere that you need in order to use it.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
okay, so that gets us there. That gets us there. Reese, if you need to draw.
So I guess you're saying if you did code it that way, you should get a warning. I'm assuming that's turned on
So
by
if
default,
I take
or
this and do something like,
out
so
of
let's
curiosity.
just
Yeah.
go parameter public string foo, and if I do something like this and go get view model dot name, right, set view model dot name gets value, right, forward it through there. I believe this was the case that I saw that runs amok of it. And I think it only elevates as a warning. Yeah, this one here. This BL007
yeah, there it is. Yeah.
component parameter should be an auto property. So this is where I was like, does it work? Yes. But they have a long thread on it on GitHub about the rationale behind it.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of that in a client code, possibly.
If I understood the thread correctly, I think it's okay to do as long as there's no side effects. And so you can get, so it's one of those things where you can kind of get away with it until you can't, and then things get weird and broken and you don't know why. And so it's like, so the recommendation was don't do that.
What is pragmatic programmer talks about that, like, don't code by coincidence.
Yes.
Like, it's just a coincidence that this works. We're not really doing it right.
Right.
Yeah, right.
No.
Right.
Can you show me your browser again real quick,
Sure.
Kevin? I'm about to get out of here too, but
so be more specific.
I just wanted to
like when I fired up.
No, yeah, sorry, with the name parameter in there.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you know? Were you just seeing? Did you have a breakpoint set in there? How did you know it was working?
So
other than it just wasn't complaining.
So I did set a breakpoint, and then once it fired up, let it load. So I just went /room ID, which is going to be 678. Nope, it's going to be 42 because that's the appropriate answer. And then
question mark
name to add it on a query string. So on the URIs, at the end of the route, the question mark separates the query string parameters from the rest of the URI. And then these just become name value pairs that are then separated by ampersands at each step of the way.
Gotcha.
So
I just had the syntax wrong. I was trying to use an ampersand to start, and it was being mixed in with my room name, my room ID.
Ah, yes.
So
yes.
Okay.
Yes. And because that thing is just a string, it goes, okay, sure, I can fit that in a string. Whereas other types, a little more restrictive, right? And then I come in here and I can go, my room ID is 42. My name is Kevin, at least for today it is. And then away we go.
I like it. So what stories did we close out here then?
So we closed out at least the first one. I'm going to check this stuff in as, let's see, there's adding landing page, reset there. And then let's see, create branch, pass room ID. Yeah, sure, we'll do that. Call it that. Pop and passing in room ID and name, submit, and then once again we do the wonderful get cracking, submit, and I think this is going to end up just being issues. This is going to be ultimately related to kind of 5, but we kind of axed how this is going to work. So after discussion, we might handle these elements. So it's kind of related to 5, kind of not. But 5 is kind of dying, so maybe we don't care. Relates to down 5. So create pull request and then open on GitHub and enable auto merge. As you can see, I did not turn